elevating the discussion while talking about the things that matter most. You're listening to Society and the State, Life, Liberty, and Your Pursuit of Happiness. Now, your hosts, Connor Boyack and Brian Hyde.
Thanks for joining us, everybody. Connor here with Brian as my co-host, and I am super excited to introduce to you today a guy you may not have heard of before, but you should, and you're going to see the boundless energy that he has. Nate Holzapfel is founder and CEO of Mission Belt. I'm actually wearing one of your belts right now, Nate. And also he's been on Shark Tank. So we're going to get into those issues a little bit and unpack what it's like to be a salesman and entrepreneur. Nate, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm a co-founder. My partners always like to be remembered, and I'm a co-founder of the Mission Belt company.
Details.
All these details that I just, I don't care much about, but everybody else, you got to be politically correct.
We'll just call you the chief hustler. That's the.
Oh, that's probably a good name for me. That's exactly
that's
what
the title we'll confer. Well, Nate, talk to us. I want to get on to Shark Tank because I am an avid fan. I've watched literally every single episode. I just love the show. I love seeing entrepreneurs hustling. It gives me motivation, gives me a lot of ideas. So I want to get into that. But first, talk to us about why you were there. What is Mission Belt? What are you doing? And why am I wearing one of your belts?
You're wearing one of my belts because we did a good job of getting everybody to see that they needed to buy a belt from a company that specialized in belts. That's the big hole in the market. I saw that there was companies who specialized in sunglasses, and there were companies who specialized in denim and women's handbags and all different types of things, but nobody really specialized in belts. Everybody did it as an afterthought. All the little belt companies were out there were small, podunk little – they didn't know what they were doing. And this type of belt I didn't even invent. We improved it and made it better, but this type of belt's been around around the world for 40 years. But everybody marketing it was – frankly, I mean this in the nicest way, totally incompetent. And they didn't know how to sell a belt like this until we came along and showed them. That's real deal. So, because I've had people come to me and say, well, Nate, you didn't invent this type of belt. Oakley didn't invent sunglasses either, man. And I'll tell you what, and it's just, and Chevy didn't invent the car. Let me tell you, it's not about inventing things. It's about marketing things.
So what's behind the name Mission Belt?
Every time we sell one of our belts, we use some of the money to help hungry families feed themselves. It was my brother's idea. I wish I could take credit for it, but it's my brother's idea, and it's a good idea. I went along with the plan, so I get the credit for going along with the plan, maybe. And we use money to help families through interest-free microloans, which allows people, in countries where, life's tougher. The United States is pretty amazing because anybody here can do anything. I mean, you can be an immigrant worker working, 2 jobs, and you can still figure out how to get yourself a car. You can figure out how to get a couple of grand together. You can go to Disneyland. You can have 5 or 6 pairs of shoes. That's not true. I was just in Cuba. That's not true for people living in Cuba. It's not true for people living in most parts of the world. So we want to be able to give people a chance to get a hand up, not a handout though, because they do have to pay it back. It's interest free. And when the money comes back, we reappropriate it back into the program. So it's cool. It's great.
And it's fun, I think, to see entrepreneurs who are giving back as they gain, right? It's a very cyclical process where it's not just about amassing wealth. It's not about –
Yeah. So that was something that's kind of interesting. So we did that from day one. So, before we even paid ourselves, the first little check to go out of the business was for these microloans. I think it's easy to say, well, when I'm rich, I'll be generous. Truth of it is that money and alcohol really are the same. They're accentuators. They're great revealers. And so all it does is, if you're not generous now, if you're not giving money to people now, you're not going to do it when you're rich.
That's such an interesting point. You and I, Nate, have a mutual friend who's actually our chairman of the board, John Pastana, and I've learned that principle from him where he's a very successful businessman, and he has a lot of friends who are the same, and he's shared that insight where as people have gained wealth, it doesn't really change their philanthropy. In John's case, he's a very philanthropic person, as you are now too, but it started when you didn't have any money. It started at the very beginning, and that's continued. So that's interesting you point that out.
It has to be that. Otherwise, you're going to one day your life away, and you just won't ever do it. And I just, that's the thing that's so funny is that people think that, one day, keep dreaming. Because it won't happen never.
Now, Nate, you're a college dropout. How has that either hindered your ability to be an entrepreneur or maybe even supplemented or accentuated it?
Well, I don't think dropping out of college has made me do better, but I think dropping out of college is something that was going to happen to me, just because it's like a side effect of being the kind of person I am, and the kind of person I am is the kind of person who goes out and maybe starts a business and sells a lot of something. So I think I don't think going to college makes you dumb, but I definitely think that it's definitely different levels of tolerance. Mm-hmm. I did not tolerate people. I had a class, an English class, where I was in this class and I had written a pretty darn good paper. My dad, who's a PhD, history PhD, my dad's written like 45 books or something. Dad is legendary, right? Professional
I have a couple
author.
of them.
Yeah, his dissertation was published. I mean, Dad's a smart guy and a great writer, really a great writer, And he helped me, and one of his editor friends who's in the English department at a university I was going to, they all helped me put this great 8-page paper together. Anyway, I'm pleased with it. I worked my guts out on it, and I turn it in, and the teacher gave me 2 points off because I used 3 sentences in a paragraph instead of 5. And I said, this is just ridiculous. This is absurd. And I just it didn't learn about the 2 points. It's about, well, what are we trying to do here? Are we trying to communicate here? Are we trying to learn here? Or are we trying to follow rules that don't matter? So I could never deal with because. And in college, there's always a lot of – in school, there's always a lot of becauses. Well, why are we doing this? Well, because. Right. And, it turns out that most of what we learned, even in grade school, it's mostly crap. We're spending all this time memorizing facts that we can Google. And then they say, well, what if the internet goes down? Well, if the internet goes down, it doesn't matter what year George Washington crossed Valley Forge does it. If we're at that, we're down to a really, really raw spot. And guess what really does matter? Welding. So it's like, it's, and once again, I love teachers. My father's a teacher, but ultimately at the end of the day, you have the blind leading the blind, because very few of those people are prepared to go out and have a career. And so that's why you see so many people today, they get done with school and they're just like, where's this awesome job I was promised? Right. And then it's just not there. So I think that's what it is. It's a low tolerance for excuses and stuff. And to me, it just wasn't
rules.
Very arbitrary. And then at the end of the day, there's nothing there. It's not the cool club it used to be. School in the 1950s, it was for white Christian kids, right? Of good families who had the money. Like 1% of the populace could actually go to college. And so when you graduated, you were an exclusive cool club, and you had this little special handshake, and you got a job wearing a white shirt and a black tie, bossing around guys my dad's age, like day one. Fast forward to today, because of credit cards, because of equal opportunity stuff, because of everything, now a huge portion of the populace can graduate school. And there's nothing wrong with it, but it's not that awesome. I'll get an awesome, sweet job the day I graduate. It's not special. It's supply and demand, right? The supply is high, so guess what? The demand is low because too many people have gone to college. So it's fine going. I mean, I admire anyone who can get through 4 years of homework and because answers. It's great, and I'm sure glad that my doctor did, but. I'll tell you what, for me, it was not a path.
Nate, one of the great perks of this podcast is we get to interview and visit with some very successful people like yourself. But one thing we're finding is that all of them are acquainted with failure. And I'd like you to tell us about the role that failure has played in helping you reach your current success.
Hey, the reason I dropped out of college isn't because things were going well, right? I'd love to sit there and tell you I was getting straight A's and then I just had enough. No, I was failing classes, man. I wasn't doing well. I was getting 2 points off of a test because I didn't have enough sentences. So failure is like a huge part of my life. Here's the big mistake that everybody makes is they think that failure will be a minority part of a successful person's life. I'm here to tell you that it is like fishing. It is like dating. You don't marry the first person you date typically. And if you do, it's usually a failure within itself, right?
Sure.
You have to go through how many people to get to that one person that you can stand being married to, or they can stand being married to you. How many times you have to throw that lure in the water before you pull out a fish you're happy with? I mean, my goodness. What this is, and once again, to kind of touch back where we were, the one thing that school teaches you that is really detrimental and will really screw you up, it teaches you that anything less than 100% is not good. It teaches you that 70% is average. The reality of it is that if you had a closing ratio of 70% with your customers, you would be the only person to close at 70%.
Yeah.
The only person. The reality of it is that you close at 3 or 4%, you're very wealthy. Trust me.
Now, Nate, you gave a funny example, which it's funny because of the segue we're now going to have about fishing, right? And you You throw the lure in, you hope you catch something. Well, you didn't catch a fish, you caught a shark. So let's now talk about how did you get on the show? Let's talk first about the application process, because I watched an interview with you recently where you talked about how you got lucky to get a shark, but you were also lucky to even get on the show. You're a lucky entrepreneur if you can get on there. So what was that like?
40 years, there's always, I hear these different numbers. I don't know which one's right because I've never counted them myself, but it's like 40 or 50,000 people a year apply for this crazy show.
Wow.
Right. And just getting noticed is hard. Now, most people who get on the show, they are either go to a live casting call or they get invited by one of the producers at Shark Tank, I was unusual. I actually got on I submitted an email. I'm a really I'm a really good salesman, and I know how to sell things via email, via text, and via the telephone. A lot of people can sell in person. Selling through one of the other mediums, that's really tough. And when you are applying for something, because all you're doing is selling. Sure. So I put out it was a one paragraph thing, and I put a picture of myself smiling, kind of a goofy one, but all pictures of me tend to be kind of goofy. And, a really big picture. I want to be memorable. And that got me a telephone call the next day. And they said, hey, we can't promise you anything, but I'm going to recommend you. Okay. And then you go through I actually wrote an ebook. So many people asking me about it. It's called 7 Steps to Shark Tank. It's on my website, natestate.com, and you can go get it. It's free. It's absolutely free. And it goes through all the 7 tiers, because there's even if you go down and film, there's no guarantee that you're going to air. Yeah. Even if you make a deal. So it's pretty intense that way. And then the name of the game is –
even, Nate, let me clarify. So even if you get a deal, you might not end up airing on the TV show?
That's 100% correct.
Wow, that's interesting.
See, that was actually one of the questions I was going to ask, was how much of reality TV is, aligned with reality? How much of it ends up on the cutting room floor?
It's real. None of that is doctored. None of that is – the whole show is 100% real. The trick is, though, is that not everything is engaging television.
Sure.
Got it.
So you film an interview, and you film, you go for an hour, and there's 5 minutes of good stuff in there, or 10.
Yeah.
And so they cut out the stuff. If it's not engaging TV, if it won't sell commercials, they're not going to air it. Because the rest, remember, Shark Tank's not about having the best businesses. Shark Tank's about having the most engaging television, right? The weirdest people doing the weirdest things. And my show is actually an upset, because you see on Shark Tank, almost everybody gets beat up. Even if they get a deal, they get beat up, right?
Yeah.
I didn't get beat up.
The Sharks loved you.
Yeah. But that was unusual. If every person went on there and did what I did, people would stop watching the show.
Yeah, there's no controversy.
Nobody watches The Bachelor to watch somebody fall in love. They watch 29 other hearts get destroyed. And no matter what anybody says, they like Simon Cowell. They like him tearing apart people's guts on that show. So that's what people want. So that's very important. And the Sharks, what they do is, and then I say the Sharks, is all human beings, for everybody. What will happen is people look for weakness. They search for weakness. You go to a new high school, you're going to find people looking for weakness, bullies, whatever it is, people probing you. And if you give them a window in, the rest of them will come in and they will frenzy. That's why they call it Shark Tank, in my opinion. So the trick is that when they start going in for the kill, well, you've got to let them know that there's no nonsense there. If you guys watch the show that I was on, Lori Grenier says, "I think it's great. You're a hero. It's awesome, but this just isn't for me."
Right.
So it was very important at that moment. I looked at her and I said, "Thank you for your opinion." I clarified that it was an opinion, not a fact. "Thank you for your opinion." And then I looked away from her. Boom. And I shut her right down.
She's dead to you.
Yeah, she's dead to me. And I was polite and I was nice, but it's just, that was over. If you watch that episode, you watch that part again, you'll be like, oh, and that's a huge part of crowd control. You have to stop it. You can't sit there and say, almost everybody gets on there and they go, oh, and their shoulders. I didn't even want Lori for a deal, but oh, darn. Oh, dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. You can't do that. You have to smile and say, okay, thanks for your opinion. Who's next? And there's a posture that you have to have when you're pitching. No matter if it's Shark Tank or you're talking to somebody on the car lot or you're talking to somebody in your daily life, there's got to be this energy that says, hey, I need your help. I want your help. My life will be better if you help me. But by the way, this train's leaving anyway, and I'm going to be doing
and
this.
And their life will be better for it too, right? If they hop on board the train.
Yeah, you allude to that. You've got to allude to that. Yeah. So it's not ego. It's not about ego. It's about confidence and saying, look, I'm going to work my guts out until I figure this out. And no offense, but if So many people can do it. So can I. I'm going to do this. But if you help me, I could probably do it 3 times as fast and make 10 times as much money. It would be really great. But if you don't want it, that's cool. I'm going to do this anyway. I'm not asking for your permission to do this business.
Yeah.
I'm doing this business. But I'm asking for your help, though. It would be lovely. So, so it's that posture.
You got Daymond as the shark in your corner. And after you left, he was saying like, man, I think this guy's going to be calling me every morning and like, come on, hustle, get up, do some work. And what's that been like for you? What's that been like to have a mentor? I mean, you have a shark in your corner. Tell us the insight of what that's like. So how does that relationship managed? How often do you have access to him? And how valuable has it been to have a shark on your team?
Anytime I text him, he texts me back. I call him, he calls me back. Most times he'll pick right up. We get along real well. He's a nice man. A real hustler, actually. The thing about it is that he might give me a lot of credit for being a hard worker. Daymond's no slacker. This guy, man, I don't know how he does it, man. He is on a plane. I mean, he's just crazy. But he's a good dude. He's a really good dude. He's 10 years older than me, almost to the day. And I'll tell you who's fascinating is Daymond's mother.
Oh.
That lady, oh my goodness, she is. One time she had sent me a text, and I think she was trying to send it to Daymond. She had sent it to me, and it was clearly a mother-son kind of a text, familial text. And I said, I think you meant that for Daymond. She's like, oh, I did. And I said, well, it's easy to confuse us. We both look so much alike. And she says, you wish. Oh, I mean, just fast. And I'm like, wow. Oh, quick-witted. Oh, smart. I mean, just that lady is super sharp. So they're just nice people, and they're just very caring, very honest. I've never seen him do anything that is even slightly questionable.
Yeah.
He has always been on top of it, 100% ethical and great. I couldn't complain about him if I wanted to. It would be wrong. We have our disagreements, right?
Sure.
Sometimes he'll call me and be upset about something. I'm not telling you he's like an older brother type of a figure who, he teases me even. But at the end of the day, somebody else teases me, he'll punch your lights out.
Nice. Now, you obviously are a guy who has a can-do attitude, and I have no doubt success was going to be yours no matter what. To what extent do you think Shark Tank or your success on Shark Tank has helped you? In
Shark Tank's like money and like alcohol. It's an accentuator, right? Mm-hmm. I've always been crazy. I've always been a good salesman, a good talker, a good this, a good that, whatever you want to call it. The difference is that when I was doing it before, only maybe a couple thousand people knew how good I was. You appear on national television and you put on a show like I did there, right? Suddenly 8 or 9 million people in one evening see it. And then 8 or 9 million more over the next 2 or 3 years through reruns and TiVo. So 20 million people end up seeing what you're capable of, and it's fascinating. It's because I'm like a pseudo kind of a fake celebrity, right? People know who I am, but at the same time, I don't have like paparazzi following me around either, do I? But I went to a car the other day, and I walked in, and the guy's like, "Oh my gosh, I know you. You're the belt guy." Yeah, I am. And it's amazing because it cuts down so much stuff. People are ready to give you the deal right away, not mess around and do things. It's fabulous. I did a CEO retreat thing a little while ago, and I brought these guys out in the street, and I said, look, we're going to sell candy bars. They said, oh, okay. It was a management team from a business. And these guys hadn't been in the street in a while, right? They had been behind their desk for too long. And so I got them out there and I said, look, I went to Costco, bought a bunch of candy bars. And I said, okay, you guys need to go out and sell all these. The first person to come back with the most money wins. And so, everybody goes out going their thing. I went up to some door or whatever, and I got lucky. The door I knocked on, the people were Shark Tank fans. And oh, you're Nate from – I'm like, guys, it would really help me if you'd buy all these candy bars for me right now. I sold them all to them one thing. I went back, and I won. And they said, well, Nate, that's cheating. I'm like, no, it's not. It's reputation. And here's the thing I'm teaching you CEOs right now. Your reputation as a leader has to be of somebody who hustles and gets things done. Do your workers see you as somebody behind the desk who's pushing them, or do they see somebody who's out there leading the charge? And so that's where you have to be mentality-wise. You've got to go out there and do that. Daymond does that. I do that. Mark Cuban does that. You'll find a lot. John Pastana does that. John Pastana is a guy who does that, right? Connor, you're a guy who does that.
Now, Nate, let me ask you this. You said the word reputation, but I want to spin it a little bit into relationship, where I might say that you were able to succeed in selling those candy bars because those individuals had a relationship with you. They knew who you were. They trusted you.
Absolutely.
They liked you. How essential is relationships to sales and marketing?
It's so essential that I give a free course away at natestate.com, unlockingrelationships.com, because it's so important. Knowing that you have to unlock the relationships around you. See, so many people, they're sitting around and they're waiting for people like Daymond to come along and save you. The reality of it is that long before you can even meet somebody like that or that person can help you, you have to unlock the current relationships in your life. The way I got on Shark Tank is I had a friend who I liked and liked me enough to let me borrow his video camera and come over and actually do the videoing.
Yeah.
Put the video together so I could submit a thing for Shark Tank. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So it's like that really, I mean, if I had been a jerk to that guy, he wouldn't have done that for me. And I didn't have the money for a video camera, so what would you have done?
This to me,
right? So it's just
the relationship aspect of especially business and entrepreneurship strikes me as so interesting, because in our work in the policy world, it was about 2 years ago where I really this clicked for me, where obviously relationships, people know it. It sounds so simple, but sometimes the most powerful lessons are the simple ones. And I came to the realization that, look, if we want to be effective and get good media coverage for our work, we have to have good relationships with reporters. If we want to be able to do our work, we have to have great relationships.
You've got to have great relationships
with donors.
That's great. Yeah, great relationships. And the thing about it is, so here's one of the huge mistakes, though, that people think. And this is once again, this is something that they teach you once again in school. God bless teachers. I love them. But damn it, some of the things they teach you are just wrong. There's this idea that everyone has to like you. That is incorrect. Relationships count. But here's the thing is, I don't trust anybody who doesn't have some crapped out relationships. Mm-hmm. If you're vanilla all the time and just getting along happy cherry with everybody, guess what? You're not doing anything unusual or special.
You're not making waves.
Well, that's right. You got to make some waves. There's people who literally think I'm the biggest jerk in the whole world. I guarantee it. But the same thing can be said for Johnny P. There's people who think that Johnny P is a jerk. He's not. There's a guy that he paid millions of dollars to who thinks he's a jerk because the guy spent all of his money. There's people who think Mark Cuban's a jerk. There's people who think that there's people who hate the Pope. How can you hate the Pope? But people do. And so the point is that relationships count, but don't try to make the mistake of making sure that every relationship is maintained. If you do that, you will fail. There is no way to focus your energy on everyone. You can focus your energy on a couple of key things, but then the rest. Now, you treat everybody nice and kind, but you treat them nice and kind until they give you a reason not to be. And some people will say, well, Jesus Christ told us to, turn the other cheek. Yes, turn the other cheek and walk away. You don't have to keep coming back for more abuse. Walk away. So that's the thing that I want to be very clear on there. Relationships count, but you don't need very many in order to have a great life. Work on the ones that are good, but if things start going sour, people start mistreating you or putting you in a position that's not comfortable, get out of it. Boom, done. And then thin out the herd.
Nate, let me ask you a final question here. You're in an elevator with one of our listeners who's an aspiring, budding entrepreneur. They're trying to figure things out. They're trying to figure out that hustle. What's the elevator pitch, the elevator lesson that you can impart to that person? If people take away one thing from Nate, what's the most valuable lesson you can offer from your experience for our listeners to be a successful entrepreneur?
Be decisive. It's the key to success. So many people, they sit around, well, I'm going to start this business, but it's not quite, but it's not ready yet. It's not ready yet. If you wait for perfection, you will fail 100% of the time. You just keep on shooting. When the first iPhone came out, it didn't even text pictures. Imagine if Steve Jobs had waited. Imagine if he had waited for the latest iPhone 7 or iPhone 8 to come out. How many billions of dollars would have been lost in revenue? I don't even know, like $100 billion? I don't even know how much money they've made. It's tons. It's like McDonald's customers. I lost count at $1 billion. Who cares? It's enough. And so the point is, if you'd waited for that perfection, where would you be? And so many people, and here's the thing is, human beings, they use these words. Once again, these are words that we're taught our whole lives growing up. Words like caution. Really what it is it's fear. We use these nasty words and we cover them up with conservative, prudent words. Well, you've got to be cautious. Well, yes, I want to sleep on it and think about it. There's nothing to sleep on, think about. You're going to either make a decision or you're not. How many more days you want to stay where you're staying? And I'll tell you what, people who want to do something and don't, that's all it is. They're just scared. And we're all scared. I'm scared. But the difference is mastering that fear and just doing it. You cannot surf from the beach. You have to get in the water, turn your back to that big, nasty, scary wave, and look over. You got to buy the surfboard and get out there. And your surfboard could get ruined. You could break your neck. But I'll tell you what, you're never going to surf from the beach. And everybody wants to surf from the beach. You can't do it. So that's the advice I would give. I'd say get out there and just do it, even if it's the wrong thing. So what? At least you're trying. You're going to get the and everybody else is still holding their hand. Well, Nate, I've been thinking about doing this business for 8 years. That's a shame. I've built 2 businesses or 3 in 8 years. What, in 5? Well, what should we do? So you've got to get it done and stop waiting for perfection. 100% is not necessary. School was wrong. If you get 3% or 10% or 30%, you're killing it. A straight F. You're killing it.
Oh my God, an F. Yes. The kids are going to be quoting you.
And I basically have an F in life because my failures are probably 70%.
Yeah.
I probably get 30% right. It's probably realistically something like that, maybe less. And so that's the advice. Don't wait for perfection. You wait for perfection. Success will not wait for you. And
love it.
It'll pass you by.
That's great, Nate. So we're going to link to your appearance on Shark Tank, the websites and ebooks you mentioned. We'll link to all of that on today's show notes page, which is societyandthestate.com/13. Nate, really appreciate you. Got tons of energy and wisdom to offer. We will link to everything so people learn more. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you, guys. You guys are nice.
Wow. Tons of energy, Brian. That's a lot to absorb and take in. What are your thoughts?
He motivated me.
Yeah.
That elevator lesson was a kick in the seat of the pants for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I like how swift that was. Being decisive, I've totally seen the same thing. I found it was very insightful where, for him, college was arbitrariness, and he saw the value in failure. And I thought that was so interesting that, 3%, 10%. No one thinks that way. You got to get 80, 90, 100%.
Yeah, I clearly recognized a couple of things that I've been sitting on purely out of fear.
Yeah.
Time to move. Time to get moving on.
And we'll talk about that, I imagine, in another episode, how pervasive fear is in politics and media and business, because I think it's such a critical thing to understand and then have the tools to overcome. And we didn't get so much into the tools today. Just Nate was recognizing that a lot of it is fear. I guess his tool was to say, be decisive as a way to counteract the fear. Get off the beach, get into the water, get your surfboard, and start trying. So that's awesome. Well, we'll link to everything, as I said, on the show notes page. societyandthestate.com/13. Guys, you're going to love the next guest. Be sure you subscribe. I'm looking at our spreadsheet now. We have so many fun people that we're going to talk to. We're on iTunes. We're on Stitcher. You can get the direct link on our website, societyandthestate.com. Join us. Share the links. We hope to build this audience and give you some awesome content. So we'll see you next time.
You've been listening to Society and the State. For show notes, archives, and more great content, visit societyandthestate.com.